what's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. Subscribe to Saturday Down South on YouTube. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, week 3 lived up to the billing. I am not sure how, but it did. And that never happens that way. And from start to finish, noon games, not great. But you know
Come
what?
on now. Georgia Tech, Clemson?
You know what? Yes, that redeemed it. You are exactly right. From start to finish all day, we had elite down to the wire, huge playoff ramification games. Week 3 was the chef's kiss that I hoped it would be when I was daydreaming about it in June.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, gosh, the Brent Key fire drill kick, man. Is there a more electric play in football?
I love the fire drill kick. I don't know if PFF tracks the fire drill kick, but it's pandemonium. Like, my heart rate is pounding, and I don't have a dollar of rooting interest in the game, and I'm just like, oh my God, they're not going to get this off. Oh my God, are they going to have enough time to... And sure enough, Georgia Tech delivers just an incredible moment. We'll get to whether or not the Clemson side of things means anything for how we look at LSU now. I will just say, before we get to all of these games here, Dabo said this team was going 16-0.
He verbally said that?
He verbally said this team was going 16-0.
And, you know, he's the type of coach that would get mad at the media for saying, like, making projections and doing stuff like that.
Now
I
Will.
love coaches, man.
Now, Will, we will talk about Brian Kelly getting mad at the media as well, and just saying that one person asking a question is just the summation of like 70 people in a room. But so, look, everybody does it, and I fully acknowledge that this is not just a Dabo Swinney thing, but yeah, it was an eventful Saturday, a very, very eventful Saturday. For those who are watching us on YouTube, you should be watching on YouTube. Will is in Baton Rouge. He was at the Florida LSU game last night. We will get to that in a little bit. So if you're seeing a little bit of a different background, that is what it is. Before we get to everything, quick word from our friends at Dabble. Guys, I've been talking about Dabble for a really, really long time. Yesterday was the perfect day to just lock in some daily fantasy content. Was just the ideal way to be able to spend your Saturday watching all of these games and getting locked into these. And if you're watching NFL, this is the way to do it. Hey, it's week 1. You already realize your fantasy team's a dud. Get into the daily fantasy and you will have a second life. Dabble's wasted no time making a name for themselves. Social function, it is second to none. They offer a wide variety of sports making picks, including, like I said, college football, NFL. If you're here, that's probably what you're interested in. Use promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $25 in bonus cash. No deposit required. Again, there's promo code SDS2 for $25 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Will, let's start with the game of the year. Georgia, Tennessee, man. Maybe the game of the year through week 3, definitely game of Saturday with how crazy this was. Oh my gosh, how Georgia got to 9 straight against Tennessee. We're recording this 11:30 on Sunday morning. I still can't believe that Georgia found a way to win that game, because say what you want about the previous 8, they didn't go like that. Okay, that felt more like Dobbs nail boot than any of the previous 8 losses that Tennessee suffered to Georgia. Tennessee fans, I feel for you, I really do. But did you get to see? So you were traveling to the Florida LSU game. Did you see like the end of this game play out and see the different reactions to it?
Yes, I saw this entire game. Somehow I was, stuck in traffic, so I got to watch it on YouTube TV, like on my phone. And man, I mean, we talked about it, and you kind of had the preview ready to go. Like, hey, opening script, Josh Heupel, he was hitting, but then those other 2 punches after that felt different. Like, okay, you get the one big touchdown, that's one thing. That second one with the PI, oh my goodness, man.
Chris Brazzell had himself a day. Looked like Randy Moss's son. He did. Well, I asked you that because I was curious if you saw the images of Tennessee fans in the final moments.
Yes.
Oh my God.
The thing about Orange is it looks awesome when you're winning, but when you're losing, it's like a highlighter of sadness. I'm sorry.
That might be the best take you've ever had. It looked so sad. I didn't have audio. Was that Joey Aguilar's dad that they like kept showing in the final moments of this game? But they kept showing that one fan. I'm gonna assume that that's just Joey Aguilar's dad. Maybe I missed that audio or whatever it was. But the images of sad Tennessee fans when that kick just has no chance whatsoever. It was hard to watch. Even if you're the biggest Tennessee hater in the world, you have to feel for Tennessee fans in that moment, because Vols had him. They had him, and
And
if
Kirby
Tennessee,
said as much. I mean, the consensus on this game is that
yes,
Tennessee outplayed Georgia. I think it is fair to say they out physical Georgia.
uh, I would say they at least matched up with them better than they have in the past because there was definitely drives in which Georgia leans on them, and they had a few just joyless murder ball drives. The
Oh
Josh
yeah.
McCray touchdown, which that's even torture for Tennessee fans too. The fact that it's initially ruled short of the goal line, and then everybody looks at the replay and is like, "Oh no, he got in. This game's over." Josh McCray's on the sideline saying, yeah, this one's over." They out physicaled in moments of this game for sure, but they at least hung tough and they didn't let Georgia do what is typically done. So it's definitely better from that standpoint. But like if Tennessee makes a kick, Tennessee just simply makes a kick, you know what we're doing right now? We're saying Josh Heupel finally got over the hump.
How
There's
cool does that
nothing.
orange look? Look how sick that stadium looked. The checkerboard.
The checkerboard looks so good.
The
It
checkerboard,
looks
I'll
so
say,
good.
we joked about this at the tailgate. Hats off to them because LSU fans could not pull off a checkerboard. There's so much organization going on there. That stadium looked fire.
It looked incredible. My guy Perry was sending me pictures and videos and whatnot of all the festivities, and it looked even cooler. I mean, like TV, I don't know if it fully does it justice, but it seemed like just an elite atmosphere. And for Josh Heupel to not be able to pull out that win, it stings in so many ways. Okay, but at the same time, I won't pretend that Tennessee is some snake bitten team because that's that wasn't getting outcoached or outclassed, I don't think. And we can argue about the false start and yeah, man, that's coaching, that's discipline in that moment. How much did it really impact a kick that never had a chance?
You know what else is coaching, Connor? 14 of your first 14 passes.
Agreed. Agreed. Joey Aguilar, 14 of 14 to start this game, was so dialed in that I think by like the third or fourth pass he threw, people were already like, "Oh yeah, the Nico breakup. This has already been decided. This is over." But
He's the only guy to ever
Heupel,
benefit from an intentional grounding because he got an intentional grounding call, which took an incompletion off the board. Next play, they get a free first down, and he's still perfect.
it's a good point. It's a good point. Now he did not stay perfect, and it was inevitable. He was not going to stay perfect, but well, when I was watching Joey Aguilar in this game, I thought he was doing 2022 Hendon Hooker against Bama. That's what it felt like. And the drive at the end where Hooker against Bama has that unbelievable throw to Brim McCoy, and I get that Aguilar didn't have that one big time signature throw, so maybe it's not a totally fair comp. Hooker in his drive gets the kick made, and Aguilar doesn't. To me, like that was the difference in their two performances. I understand that he had the two picks in this game. Maybe the lull was a little bit different, but Hooker and the Tennessee offense had that lull against Bama 3 years ago when they finally got over that hump. And it was like, oh God, Bama's going to come back after Tennessee came out just off to the races. And then Hooker eventually starts making plays on the stretch. It felt so reminiscent. It felt like I was watching a shot for shot remake of that game, with the exception of how it ended. And I like I want to get to Aguilar in Tennessee, like big picture, what it means in a second. But Georgia is far from perfect. Georgia fans will tell you that. That was not a perfect team that took the field, especially the secondary, the right side of that offensive line. But a couple of key revelations happened in this one. A couple of very key revelations that if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm feeling very, very good about, especially knowing how they have, two true road games left on the schedule, which is just insane.
I hate to say
Good.
like the whole like I'm glad both teams had fun, but I feel like both teams could walk away from this game pretty proud. Like considering what Georgia has done to Tennessee in some previous years, you got to be kind of happy as a Tennessee fan that you
Correct.
belonged. I would say Georgia, is probably close to the class of the SEC. You talk about Oklahoma, not ready to say that about LSU, but Tennessee was right there on Saturday.
The micro is bad for Tennessee, and it's going to sting. Like I will not sit here and tell you don't let that loss sting, but I will say, come Tuesday, come Wednesday, Tennessee fans, when you've had a chance to exhale, stop dry heaving, and I won't find fault in anybody dry heaving watching that ending. But once you realize what happened on Saturday and have full perspective, I think you will move forward feeling pretty good about this. And Georgia as well. Gunnar Stockton, first true road game. And my goodness, balled out. It wasn't perfect, but did the things that we questioned. Can he do this? Can he throw downfield? Does Georgia want to throw downfield? The ball to Colby Young to start the game off, that was a dime. I said out loud, oh my God, that's a dime. That throw will be the auto response to questions about his downfield accuracy. And so will the fourth down throw to London
That fourth down
Humphreys.
throw, Connor, oh my God. I don't know what I could say on air that would describe the confidence I have in that throw. That is like, and when you think about how they start the game, I feel like early it did feel like Tennessee had a little bit of a physicality edge. And it felt like, wow, like Gunnar Stockton is out there making plays. There was like maybe a little bit of a drop here and there. And it was like, well, like Georgia needs to kind of step up and kind of alleviate him. But it was never really in my mind a Gunnar Stockton problem. I feel like he solved those questions early in that fourth down throw. Like you got to love what you have.
You have to. That is a coming of age moment where it's fourth down and I'm sitting here going, oh my God, Mike Bobo, you just called a heck of a game. And on fourth down in this spot, you're going to throw an over the shoulder, high degree of difficulty play to London Humphreys, who, look, trust tree here. Sometimes I tell myself as the ball is going to London Humphreys, oh, that's Lad McConkey. He's about to catch it.
That's
London
profiling,
Humphreys,
and profiling is wrong.
Trust tree, Will. Trust tree. London Humphreys is not Lad McConkey,
Yeah.
and that's on me. I need to be better.
Mhm,
I haven't said that out loud. I haven't said that in a story, but I've thought it.
mhm.
And my God, did he look like Lad McConkey on that catch? Because unbelievable play and unbelievable confidence that they had to execute that. And if you're the Tennessee secondary, I don't know what you do to defend that. That is a perfect throw and catch. And in that moment, you're thinking, well, Georgia just made the exact type of play that wins football games. And now Tennessee, if you want to talk about what could Tennessee have done better in this game, probably covering Zachariah Branch, who I'm still going to call Zachariah and not Zach, on the 2-point conversion.
That's such
Probably
a
just,
weird, like, vibe shift of a name, like Zachariah versus Zach. Anyway,
we're staying with Zachariah. We're
it's
we're
cooler. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not shortening that to Zach. No. But I was really impressed with Gunnar Stockton. Really, really impressed. And I'm ready to say I think Gunnar Stockton can throw downfield. I think he can do all the things in this offense. I don't know that he's always going to do that at a very high level of success, but man, the things that he showed in that game, the hits that he was taking with some of those throws, man, and still delivering on targets. Like, dude, this is what we were hearing about after Carson Beck got hurt. This is the resiliency, the toughness, the blue collar mindset that Gunnar Stockton is bringing to this team, and I thought we saw that play out.
It's funny, I started to say it's like we keep thinking, oh, in the NIL era, like Georgia's going to run out of these like good old boy, like heartfelt stories. It's like maybe not. Maybe Kirby just finds these guys that like are just going to work and get better. And it's just cool to watch these teams. Like this is going to be a great rivalry for years to come. I feel like both of these coaches are pretty happy and they're pretty set where they're at. And so watching this chess match for the next like 5-10 years and what these guys come up with is going to be super cool. And I know you mentioned this guy earlier, one of my favorite players in this game, Connor, Josh McCray. How about this stat line?
Yep.
7 carries, 17 yards, 2 tutties. That is a specialist right there.
The man, I'm glad I called that guy award of the week goes to Josh McCray, because
Mm-hmm.
I think Kirby Smart looked at his backfield in the spring and thought, man, we're going to have a tough time finishing off some of these drives if we don't get someone in here that can just push the pile between the tackles, get into the end zone, veteran dude, like 240, try and shut that down. Josh McCray, post spring edition, huge.
Oh
That's
Lord, he
exactly.
coming. Oh
Oh
Lord,
man,
he coming.
he was in the leg drive. You see all of it. And I was kind of surprised at his usage the first couple games. And then I thought, if they're not going to use him in these spots in this game, what was the point of getting him as a post spring addition, wherein certain Brett Bielema cried foul about tampering? But Georgia got something that it didn't have last year. It didn't have. And they needed a Josh McCray last year. They had that guy this year. I think it makes a huge difference in that game to be able to have that bully in the backfield to finish drives. And Georgia's skill players who are former transfers really showed up in this one. I mean, the Branch touchdown, that was a, can I say, I was going to say something that's a little bit more PG-13. I'll dial it back. A Mike Bobo fantasy play of
Yeah.
when he was making the pitch to Zachariah Branch to come to Georgia from USC. I guarantee you he got some sort of AI machine to draw up that exact play and said, this is how you're going to score touchdowns here. And here's how I'm going to feed you the rock. And he was right. And he was really, really good in this game, and came away feeling like, oh, that's the dude that 2 years ago was a freshman All-American and was somebody that we consider to be one of the best playmakers, dynamos in all of college football.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the Mike Bobo offense is it has always had great players, right? And that's the thing. It's like, you know, sometimes the answer is right in front of you. We talked about this, like you said, in the spring, and it's like the swing passes, the things that Mike Bobo has always done, where the goal is my athletes are better than yours. I'm going to get them in space. I'm going to let them be athletes, right? And that was some of the stuff that I think you hit on that. Like last year, they didn't exactly have a traditional running back in this way they could lean on. That they had ETN, who was a great player, but I think this is the contrast that we're seeing between these two teams. Last year, you have Beck and ETN, who are more finesse players, highly rated players. But this year, you're getting kind of more back to the Georgia identity, I think.
Bobo has Tim Banks' number. I'll say that. The three performances that Bobo's had against Tennessee, maybe his three best. I mean, really, like they for whatever reason, he sees that defense. And yes, I understand Tennessee having two starting corners out definitely hurt. That's also why I think better days are ahead for this Tennessee defense. And I don't necessarily think that was some sign that they have massive, massive issues with the plays that Georgia was making. But you got to tip your cap to Mike Bobo in this game. He was tremendous when you know what the conversations would have been if he had just been awful and Tennessee had run away with this. And it looks like Josh Heupel and the Tennessee offense are just running circles around Georgia. That was certainly not the case. Will, can we put some respect on Josh Heupel's name,
Yeah.
even on a losing effort? We need
Yeah.
to. I said in August, I don't know if I said it, but I wrote it. Joey Aguilar, I thought he was going to get benched in week 3. Yeah. I thought he was going to get benched and give
Everybody
way to
Google
Jake
that. Go on
McCready.
X.com, Connor O'Gara, Joey Aguilar.
I'm pretty sure I said it in Tennessee's crystal ball, and a Tennessee
Mhm.
crystal ball in which I think I had him going 8-4, and I said this is when it's going to catch up. Maybe he's going to do some things that are going to look really promising that first week, but once he sees a defense like this Georgia defense, it's going to be tough. And Tennessee will have that reality settle in of, man, it would be nice if we had someone with experience out there against SEC competition who has experience in the system. And that was so unbelievably wrong, even as he's slinging it in the first quarter. And Tennessee's just getting every blade of grass that it wants. It's got 21 points in the first quarter, which most that Heupel's had against Kirby in any game so far. And I still was thinking in these moments, this dude's about to crumble. And for 2 quarters and roughly 2 hours of real time, that script was playing out. It was. But how do you break out of that? Well, you have a guy that can actually throw downfield, and you have a guy that is willing to say, screw it. I'm kind of here on borrowed time. I'm gonna let it fly, and not let it fly from a Joe Milton standpoint, where I think I'm getting points for how far I throw it, but like I'm gonna go let my guy make a play type of throw, and he did. And that moment I thought was huge, and I thought if Tennessee was gonna win that game, that touchdown pass that he had to Brazel was going to be the moment we looked back on and said, Joey Aguilar, this was your coming of age moment. The same way that Gunnar Stockton's was the over the shoulder to London Humphreys, who's definitely not Lad McConkey moment. I thought it was going to be that. And I don't think it should just be ignored what Joey Aguilar did when everybody knew the history. We brought up the stats so many times, like 106-20. Tennessee had been outscored quarters 2 through 4 against Georgia under Josh Heupel. And that fourth quarter, end of the third quarter, I guess, they showed the response, and they did everything you hoped that they would do in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I feel like we can, as a college football populace, root for what's going on at Tennessee and kind of laugh at what's going on with Nico at UCLA, right? Because it's like
It's
nobody,
done, Will. It's done.
it's over with.
It's finished. It's finito. 35-10 to New Mexico. Done. Let's move on. We can just focus on Tennessee. That is out of sight, out of mind, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, they might not win another game this year. Nico could be playing baseball like Tim Tebow by the end of the year, just so he doesn't have to be around that team. But I mean, yeah, like I said, it's just cool to root for a guy who wants to be there, and to have a guy pick you in that way. And yeah, I mean, I have trouble squaring this Brazel performance because I'm like, is this a guy having a good day, or is this like the best receiver in the
No,
SEC?
he was
Because for a
last year.
day,
He was supposed to be really good last year, coming over from Tulane. I'm still working on how to say Tulane.
you
Ole
got
Miss
it.
plays against Tulane. I'm doing my best. I'm really trying to get the most Louisiana pronunciation of it. but he was supposed to be a stud last year, and it just didn't work out necessarily. And I know he was banged up at different points. It's kind of the receiver room as a whole. That was the guy that he was billed as coming in. And 2 years ago, he was a great player. So I tend to think there's a little bit more of like, I'm not saying he's going to be an all SEC guy, but I kind of thought yesterday could have been a sign of things to come for him.
Yeah, and I mean, that Georgia defense is no slouch. I mean, I'm sure if you would ask both of these coaches, like, what do you think the final on this would have been? Yeah, overtime, but 44-41 is like we watched them collectively lose about 5 years off of their lives on these sidelines. Like you see Kirby and Heupel. Heupel is just becoming more SEC every day. He's kind of like you. He's moved down here. He's starting to grow the beard. I can start to pick
Eh,
up a little bit of the twang in his voice sometimes when he talks, and you could just see him out there like, Dad gummit, son. And he's like, wait, I'm Josh Heupel. I shouldn't be doing this.
Here's something. So Joey Aguilar, he's going to get to play this year out. I'm pretty sure this is his last year of eligibility. Again, who knows anything about anything when it comes to that? We'll get to another guy later who, a certain Ole Miss quarterback who may or may not have come in and set the world on fire.
Mhm.
But let's just say that this is indeed Joey Aguilar's last year of eligibility, and there's no sort of back end stuff that he can do to get another year.
So we thought
Which,
about Diego, man.
yeah, as late as November, we thought that. Nico comes back to Tennessee.
As a GA?
No, Nico comes back. Just ultimate. It's reunions are hot right now in college football. Look at Rich Rod at West Virginia. They're having fun. I don't think UCF's going to have fun with Scott Frost, but whatever. The reunion, at least for like 2 minutes, was fun.
Mhm.
Nico comes back to Tennessee. Tennessee fans are like, see, and now you're going to take less money, and you're going to understand I'm the captain now.
There you go.
This is our show. We did this without you. We don't need you, but we'll welcome you back with open arms. Nico comes back to Tennessee. Full circle NIL story from start to finish. Who says no?
Probably both of them, I would be honest. Probably both
His
of them.
dad. I'll tell you what, his
exactly.
dad says
the
no.
family is everyone's out. Aguilar fights
Yeah.
him anyway.
Yeah, but I love what Joey Aguilar is doing. I really do. And look, I think Tennessee can be a playoff team with Aguilar and that defense, which will have better days. I hope they get that secondary healthy. I want to see Jermod McCoy back out there. But how Josh Heupel has managed to even put that team in position where if you just would have paused as Max Gilbert is about to attempt that game-winning kick, if you just would have paused and said, let's revert back to the beginning of August when they're rolling out practices with no scholarship receivers who had played in a Tennessee uniform last year and played in games at least. And they're trying to figure out what their backfield rotation is going to look like. They've got 4 of 5 new starters on the offensive line. Dylan Sampson's gone. And is Joey Aguilar going to get this offense down? All of these questions we had as recently as, I don't know, 5 weeks ago. And to be in that moment where you're a kick away from finally ending the streak and doing so in a game like that, not like, oh, it's 21-17 or something like that, and this offense is kind of showing some signs that it's going to struggle. No. You're going to win in a shootout against Kirby Smart? What? So that
Yeah.
should be appreciated. That'll be Tuesday, Wednesday realization for Tennessee fans.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the fact, we talked about them punching Georgia in the mouth early. That's nothing new, but it was the consecutive, kind of the 3 early touchdowns, and then they didn't start turtling, which I think is such a massive deal in a mental battle with a team like Georgia, especially at home, where it's like, okay, we got to get these fans, like getting the crowd involved. They said that on the broadcast, by the way. I was checking for it. They said that directly, but getting the crowd back involved after Georgia's already had their run, I think that's what you look for. And when Josh Heupel has struggled, last year and the year before, it's like, okay, we start hot and then we get so cold that the fans are sitting there like biting all their fingernails off by the end of the game and nobody believes we can do this. And it felt like, I mean, not to go back to Joey and everything, but that's kind of what he brings. And, you just felt like you belong. Like I said, you felt like no matter what Georgia had, you had the answer, without the starting corners, with kind of some of the other weird issues they've had like that. Nico, the other DB, like, and yeah, that was a perfect throw by Georgia on 4th and 6. But if you're Josh Heupel, you're sitting there going, "What am I supposed to do?" With my 3rd and 4th corner out here. It just is what it is.
20 consecutive points for Georgia. That should have been a knockout blow to most Tennessee teams. It just wasn't. And it was fun to see that game play out the way that it did. Again, I don't say fun from watching Tennessee fans go through torture, but you get what I'm saying. Kirby Smart is now your active leader in wins against top 15 teams in the AP poll. He passed a certain Dabo Swinney yesterday. Kirby's got 30 of those wins. 30. He's
Wow.
averaging 3 a year against AP top 15 teams. Averaging more than 3 a year because this is year 10. And he's, obviously we're only in week 3. Saban is your 21st century leader in that with 65, which is just stupid to think about. Next closest is Bob Stoops with 36. Again, those are not active coaches. And then Urban finished, and I'm going to say finished because Urban ain't coming back, Florida fans. Urban finished with 30. So the exact same number that Kirby Smart is at right now. Kirby now has as many wins against AP top 15 teams through the beginning of year 10 as Urban had in 17 seasons, 13 of which were as a power conference coach at Florida and Ohio State. That's Kirby's on the Mount Rushmore of 21st century college football coaches, in my opinion.
Yeah,
You can't argue it.
and like we've talked about, with his age and the path that he's on, what he's already done, he's well on the path to be on that kind of Mount Rushmore overall. And maybe Georgia fans are probably saying you're being too nice to Tennessee, so I'll give you this one, Georgia fans. Do you think Kirby Smart has had more wins against the top 15 or home night games per year, Connor?
Well, he's got one in 2 weeks, buddy. And don't you know it? It's going to be a big one. It will be a big one. I cannot wait for that against Alabama. Georgia and Alabama are both on bye, and then they will play in a game that will have a whole lot of billing after the way that last year played out. And Georgia, having not lost a home night game since 2009, is just going to be an absurd stat that will need to be brought up repeatedly going into that matchup. Okay. Other game that was just awesome down to the wire. Oh my God, week 3, you're incredible. Texas A&M pulls it out at Notre Dame. I am still shocked. And my shirt, I guess, I got the they call this, I think they call it Irish camo.
You're a spy, is what you are.
I look like one right now. I really do. I've got like all the Midwest stuff in the background. People would assume, oh yeah, Notre Dame guy. I cannot believe A&M won this game. Cannot believe it. I don't mean just I'm surprised they went into South Bend and played down to the wire with a super similar style. I don't mean it from that standpoint. I mean, I'm surprised that the college football gods let Tyler Buckner, that's right, Tyler Buckner, have a botched snap on the PAT and that they let A&M hold on a game-winning touchdown. It was a hold, A&M fans. You could admit that and also admit that your team never hits college football gods parlays. You are the team that doesn't do that. You get one tough break that doesn't go your way. It's something we bring up at the end of an 8-4 season where I go on Texags and we talk about these things. We say, wow, look how close A&M was to the college football playoff. And then we move on from it and we move on to the next 8-4. That ending, it felt like an alternate ending playing out in real life. That never happens to A&M, ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because in the preview I was joking about like, well, if Notre Dame has the right amount of guys on the field, they usually do pretty well. And how did Notre Dame lose this game? Procedurally, just like that, Tyler Buckner is such a great call out because it's like, and at the end of that game, and
Poor
I was able
guy.
to watch the end of that game, right? Because it was after the LSU game, but they like, they're chucking it at the end zone, and that's the thing is like, it's almost like you can't give a team that many chances. But it felt like both teams were kind of like scared on every play. Like you had kind of the defensive, I don't know if it was a PI or a hold at the very end by Notre Dame that kept A&M in the game. But it just felt like the way the day that Reed was having, one of these chances was going to work out in some way. And lo and behold, you look at the end, it's like single coverage, it's like just mossed on him.
Yeah, Nate Borkature, the pride of Aurora, Nebraska, a former Scott Frost recruit at Nebraska, a
Oh my
zero-star
gosh.
recruit. Yeah, how about that? Like 21 career catches. And I know my friends at Texags have talked about him a lot, how they thought he was going to the NFL as a blocking tight end, and then A&M kind of scooped him up as an opportunity and relatively unheralded because he obviously doesn't have the passing game pedigree. And Marcel Reed was talking about it afterwards, kind of double clutched on that throw too, and realized I've got this dude on a linebacker. He's going to go up and be able to make a play for him. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. A&M's first win against a ranked team in a true road game since year 1 of the playoff era, 2014. And easily one of the biggest A&M touchdowns of the playoff era. I'm not going to say that it was bigger than what they did last year down the stretch against LSU, but
This is unnecessary. Why would we
you're
do this
fine.
on this beautiful day?
I got to
I'll say
knock you
it's one
down a
of the
little bit.
I'll say it's one of the biggest A&M touchdowns of all time. When you think about perception, and you think
Could be.
about where they're at right now, and you think and, like, I was really big on it. We talked about this over and over again last year where it's like A&M was so surprising early, and then they kinda faded, and I kept saying, "Guys, this is year 1. Like, we should be so excited about this," to prove that that kind of wasn't a fluke, that you are this fundamentally sound team that can get revenge on Notre Dame, who just made the championship game. Insane.
Absolutely insane. So gutsy. I couldn't believe this one got into the 40s, and it followed this who's going to get the football last sort of mindset. I think both defensive minded head coaches were looking at this going, well, this is weird. This is not the type of game that we're typically involved in.
They're
I
both
don't want
hearing the ghost of Brian Kelly screaming in their ears, like, "How'd you let up that touchdown, son?" They're both former defensive coordinators. Yeah, they were having less fun than Kirby and Josh.
Notre Dame would write a blank check probably to get Al Golden back instead of Chris Ash right about now.
Al Golden, huh? I love missing Al Golden.
Man, Al Golden was great, and I do think Al
Mhm,
Golden and Will Muschamp are related. Same breed of human. That's a different discussion for a different time.
mhm.
This game was it was wild. It was so wild. Jeremiah Love had 27 touches in this game. He had 23 carries. This guy had never had more than 15 carries in a game, and we talked about that coming in about how they basically forgot about him week 1. And if you had told anyone Jeremiah Love's going to get 27 touches, A&M is going to commit 13 penalties and let up 40 points, you'd say, okay, Notre Dame won this one, like, I don't know, 41-17 or something. And A&M won that game.
Yep,
A&M lost Scooby Williams on the interception. And then they also had the very scary Bryce Anderson injury. It was really a tough defensive day for A&M and for Elko. But why did they win this game? Well, they won this game in part because Jeremiah Love is as high volume as his role was in this game. He was held to 4 yards per carry. Now, he was still great in the passing game. That one-handed grab that he had, it's like, dang, this dude is really special. And the Scooby Williams pick where he gets hurt, that was huge because Notre Dame was threatening to take a 2-score lead and basically get the ball out of half and really kind of bust this thing open. And instead, after Notre Dame finally turns the ball over in that spot where, CJ Carr just kind of floats this little dump off a little bit too high, A&M then takes the lead, kind of sets the tone for the rest of the game. I thought Le'Veon Moss being healthy to finish drives was really great, but this was all about Marcel Reed and this passing game growing up in front of our eyes. And I realize 17 for 37 is not going to suggest that Marcel Reed is this precision passer, and he's not exactly going to always be that guy, but when you need him to make big time plays and you need his new look group of pass catchers, Mario Craver, who went over 200 yards in this game, and Casey Concepcion, who's making ridiculous catches all over the field. When you need those guys to step up, they can. And this was the type of game A&M could not have won last year. They would have fought in this game last year, but they would not have won this game. And I was blown away that they were able to come back and win this style. To me, this showed that while A&M is not perfect because they do have to clean up the defensive issues, this offense is taking that next step in year 2 with Colin Klein, and that's exactly what you could have hoped for this offseason.
Yeah, man. Again, let's all be neutral football fans here. I'm so glad that Texas A&M exists because how does a team like this exist? I mean, you talk about those two like great receivers they have, like phenomenal. I mean, what a day for receivers across the SEC, right? And then talk about the tight end. You said his name is Borkershner.
That was we're a little bit off the money. Borkercher.
Borkershner.
Borkercher.
Well, there's also a gentleman here with several umlauts in his name, Theo Melon Uerstrom. So again, A&M has assembled this wild like team,
He had the
and
penalty on the kickoff return, right? On the negated touchdown. I think that was called back,
mhm, mhm.
I believe.
Yeah, but like point being, or where I'm going with that is that like Colin Klein has built this offense, and we love that hire when it was made, and especially to pair with a defensive minded head coach in Elko, where it's like you're only going to see this in one place in the world. It's Texas A&M. You're only going to see Marcel Reed and these receivers and these tight ends and this style of offense. And finally, we've been waiting, I guess, since Manziel left, basically to see. Okay, it's A&M. They're in the SEC. They're taking football seriously. They're upgrading their facilities. Let's actually have them not kind of get in their own way. And this was a situation where everybody, like the whole system, was humming and working together. And that could be kind of a scary thing if you're an SEC team that doesn't have those resources. I hate to say it that way, but if A&M can just kind of not trip themselves, you can see what they can assemble here and how special it can be because yeah, that pairing is so hard to stop.
Do you think we were sleeping on Marcel Reed too much, or do you think we were fairly critical and pointing out the downfield issues, the struggles against pressure? I think that those were such obvious weaknesses in his game last year, not as a full time starter necessarily, but as a guy who ended up starting a lot of games. But I almost feel like those issues were fair to point out. And if you're Marcel Reed, it gave you an exact blueprint of what you needed to work on and how you needed to be able to improve and improve with what I believe are better weapons. I think these are improvements at receiver. I can't believe Mario Craver is as good as he is already coming over from Mississippi State. How Mississippi State had Kevin Coleman and Mario Craver on that team and still was in such a frustrating offensive scenario. I realize not having Blake Shapen out there was impacting that, but still, it's kind of wild to look back on. And Marcel Reed looks like a guy that is showing I deserve to be considered one of the elite quarterbacks, not just in this conference, but maybe in college football. Because his legs, the ability to pick up that, I think it was that fourth down or third, it was like a key 3rd and 10 or something like that. That's going to be there. Like that's going to be a part of his game. You have to respect. It's all the other stuff. Because last year he fought in games. He really did. The thing that I kept praising him for was when they get down against Auburn, when they get down against South Carolina, and those buildings are rocky, that dude keeps battling. He keeps battling. It doesn't have this, oh, tail between the legs. It's just not my day type of mentality. And while I'm a Connor Wigman believer, did really nice things on Friday night.
Good
I
thing
was
to be
loving
this
Connor
weekend.
Wigman.
Yeah.
I was loving Connor Wigman, the things he was doing against Colorado. That foot in the ground that play that he made, where even his own offensive line was like throwing his hands up. I hope Connor Wigman and Haynes King and all the former A&M quarterbacks have great days ahead, like it looks like they're having this year. But Marcel Reed was better at that and showed more poise at that last year. And I think that's one of the big reasons why it became so clear to Mike Elko. This is a guy I need to go all in. I don't care if Connor Wigman was the highest rated quarterback recruit that Jimbo had brought in since Jameis. I need to be able to see this Marcel Reed thing through. And you did it for a game like that. Huge moment for Elko, knowing that he had left Notre Dame, for the A&M defensive coordinator job, knowing that Marcus Freeman had beat him the last 2 years at 2 different schools. And now A&M's got a huge floor raiser for its playoff outlook, which is key. Really, really key. By going into that building, A&M is going to get the benefit of the doubt against Notre Dame with those rankings. Even if A&M is 9-3, 9-3 A&M who beat a 10-2 Notre Dame team, in theory, that should be 9-3 A&M, right?
Well, in theory, 0-1 Notre Dame shouldn't have been number 8, but I digress.
Fair. I get a little bit more respect for a team that's defending runner-up like they were last year. And having to go on the road and play a Miami team who looks very much like a top 5 team. And hand up, I've been wrong about Carson Beck, but
the least likely outcome is always the outcome for Miami. Carson Beck being good, Cam Ward being good, those were not likely outcomes. That's why they must,
Cam Ward being good was a pretty likely
Cam Ward
outcome.
being that good.
Fair.
Cam Ward being that good. So kind of coming out of nowhere, same thing. So point being, and how could I have forgotten too, like Terry Bussey when I talk about them assembling this wild team. But the beautiful thing about Marcel Reed is he still has so much growing to do. I'm certainly not ready to write the book on him just yet because I don't think we've seen him play enough football. But I think, to your point, the pairing with him and Colin Klein has finally found a guy that is his style of quarterback. Wigman, and I mean, again, shout out to Texas A&M. I'm not saying this like as a joke. Like they have somehow developed all these quarterbacks that are starting. You talked about Haynes King, Calzada is out there, Max Johnson.
Really.
Max Johnson started a little bit, played a little bit for A&M. He's playing a little bit. I mean, so it's not that they were necessarily wrong about any of these guys individually. It's that the guys that they had didn't fit the style they were trying to play at whatever time. Well, at this point in time, if you look at Colin Klein, the style of quarterback he played, the style of offense he ran at Kansas State, Marcel Reed is a great fit for it. And he's shown that he's going to let him go through those growing pains in a way that and still honestly be able to move the offense with his legs, which matters a ton. Whereas when Wigman struggled, and again, Now we bring up the LSU game last year. When Wigman struggled, the offense was dead in the water. When Reed struggles, at least he can give you something with his legs. At least he can present the threat of that deep downfield pass so they can zip out there sometimes. And at least you can move sideline to sideline. So I think that the floor, to your point, is so much higher with this current system that it's going to be such a fascinating chess match with him versus the defensive coordinators in the SEC.
I just like that Reed doesn't have grenade games. I just like that even though you could be a little bit frustrated that it's not more consistent within a game, I just like that for 60 minutes, that guy's not just going to turtle. And A&M had too many quarterbacks post Manziel that would do that. And you'd see it in a game against Alabama. Marcel Reed, the confidence that he has, it just always is going to keep him feeling like it's almost a baseball mindset that he brings to the table. Hey, I know I'm 0 for 4, but I'm going to step into that box, and I feel like if I like a pitch, on a 3-1 count, I'm gonna let it rip, and I feel like I'm going to find a way. And he just has that right mindset. That I think that position with the scrutiny it's faced, understandably so, I think it's what it needs. So I think A&M. We talked about playoff chances deep into November last year. We're going to be talking about A&M in the playoff picture very much this year. I think Notre Dame is going to be cooked. I really do. Look. Last year, the two at-large teams who got in to the playoff at 10-2 without a conference title bid, Tennessee and Ohio State, both had a big marquee win. Tennessee beat Alabama. That was really only Tennessee's big marquee win. Ohio State gets to credit Penn State as its big marquee win because that's just the way that it works. My thoughts on that. I know we said that last year with Notre Dame, saying that they're cooked after they lost to Northern Illinois. You can't put them in after they lose to that team. This year, though, in a weird way, it actually, besides just the fact that it's 2 losses compared to 1, in a weird way, it hurts them if A&M is going to be part of the playoff picture in a way that Northern Illinois wasn't, because that's a team that's edging you out right there. Like go ask South Carolina what that's like when Ole Miss and Alabama are the teams that you're looking at going, oh, well, crap, we lost to both of those teams. It's really hard for us to justify being ranked ahead of them when we know that those two teams are blocking us because of the head-to-head. It doesn't mean it's always going to play out like that, but I think when you go into their building and do that, it becomes tougher and tougher to overlook, even if Notre Dame rattles off 10 in a row. And 10 in a row against who? Because look at that remaining schedule. Unless USC turns into a juggernaut, they're not getting that marquee win. Sorry, Purdue ain't that marquee win. Boise State's not going to be that marquee win. It's
Sam Pittman disrespect on this fine podcast. Wow.
Arkansas, we respect. Arkansas ain't your marquee win, Notre Dame. It's not. Arkansas fans, you can admit that. You can admit that. You beat Ole Miss. Okay, we're having a different discussion. That did not prove to be the case.
No, but one quick thing on this, though. Is this enough? I try so hard not to fall into this trap, but I think that this win. Okay, well, first off, let me follow off of your point. Watching LSU have this Clemson win and then having Clemson look like they're not as good as we thought they were. I'm here to say right now, if you're an A&M fan, unfortunately, you have to root for Notre Dame the rest of the way.
100%.
100%. But I think to your point, if you beat that team, so you give the point of South Carolina, I think this is the inverse of that, where as good as Notre Dame does, in your heart of hearts that you're better than that team because you beat them on the road. Now, you can talk about the circumstances if that's football, right? I mean, there's plenty of plays that go here and there, but I think that that's your floor, right? So let's say they win out here and A&M, like to your point, has the same amount of losses or whatever. It's like, but we know almost definitively because it was on the road, because of all these different things. So I think that Notre Dame being good helps them a ton versus it would be a lot easier to write off Notre Dame if Notre Dame has another loss or two and go, actually, this Notre Dame team, kind of like Clemson, wasn't that good. Now, that being said, does this win, and this is the part where I say, I try to not do this early in the season. Does this definitively say, okay, like we have playoff expectations for this A&M team? Like if A&M does not make the playoff, it is now week 3, it is going to be a disappointment almost no matter what, taking out like a Marcel Reed injury or something,
If A&M misses the playoff, will it be considered a disappointment with how things have started? I'm going to say yes. A&M fans, if you're sitting there at the regular season finale losing to Texas or something like that, because if you beat Texas with the way that you've started, one would think that we're talking about getting into the playoff. If you're talking about losing to Texas again and realizing that your playoff path ended at the hands of Texas, yes, you will be disappointed looking back and saying, we had this opportunity. It was set up for us. You could argue that last year in November to say that A&M from the LSU game on, yes, it would have been considered a disappointment for A&M to miss the playoff, and it was. Now, we changed that because of the preseason expectations that were exceeded in the first 2 months of the season. What's different is that we're saying this in week 3. So
Yes,
how
and
that
that's
plays out,
exactly the point I'm
yeah.
making because that's something, like I said, we kind of disagreed on last year. I said, this is year one. This isn't even like their guys. They had to do a quarterback change. This is just the team they had. This is the team they brought, right? With the transfer receivers, with the guys they recruited, So I think, and not to get too deep into the schedule or whatever, but they could stomach, I think, 2 losses probably. Texas looks less scary by the week as they continue to not figure out their
True.
quarterback. You're at LSU. Far be it for me to ever count Auburn out, I guess, but you look up and down the schedule and it's like, if they play the way they did on Saturday, it's hard for me to find 3 losses, maybe 2, but it feels like the path winning this game is such a shift because instead of playing from behind and knowing you've already lost to Notre Dame, and then therefore again Notre Dame season really mattering to you because how much does that loss matter? Now it's like, well, everything's ahead of us. It's all green grass.
A&M can finally win a road game. They couldn't win a road game under Jimbo.
Yeah.
It was awful. And now they can finally do that with Elko, and it changes their ceiling. And that's going to be a huge storyline moving forward with what is this team going to look like in late October. If they're rattling off these road wins and all of a sudden building up that resume, they're going to have several losses to be able to give. I'm not saying that means 9-3 A&M is a lock to make the playoff, but when you win on the road, it just changes things. It changes how we look at you. You can win a big time home game against LSU like they did last year, but until you go into somebody else's house that people actually respect, that's always going to be the yeah but. Okay, well, game you were at, Florida, LSU. Should I start off with a question about the LSU offense, or would that be bad to do
Well,
that?
Connor, did you see the last play, man? Hey, hey.
Okay.
You know what my
Okay.
favorite part of that is, Connor? It's that, hey, of course, on a day that Notre Dame loses, on a day that, we're writing the Billy Napier eulogy, of course, the most annoying Brian Kelly quote maybe ever. You can say whatever you want about Brian Kelly, but just know you can't say they should have hired Billy Napier.
True. Okay, so for those who don't know what we're talking about, if you didn't see this play out, Brian Kelly got very, very annoyed with starting off a post-game victory press conference after beating Florida by 10 points, by answering a question about the offensive struggles. And I shouldn't say he answered the question. He more just got very, very prickly in a hurry.
He spoke
If
his
you
mind. He spoke his truth.
A minute 20 of Brian Kelly doing a very Brian Kelly thing in a post-game press conference and reminding us all there's probably a reason why the average person doesn't root for Brian Kelly. Let's just say that. It is worth your time to watch this video if you have not. LSU avenges last year's loss, picks off DJ Lagway 5 times, and that the LSU offensive struggles. Yeah, 5. That's right.
5, yeah.
I can't even count that high. The LSU offense is the thing that Brian Kelly is asked about immediately. And by the way, Molly McGrath had just asked him a question about the offensive struggles in the post-game interview on ABC that was similar but different. She said, what do you have to do to get the offense up to a championship level like the defense? Will, what was your thought on this whole dynamic as someone who was there in the building and felt maybe the offensive angst?
Yeah, I mean, I felt it. I think that, you know, it's the classic was a Bernie Mac quote where it's like, I don't condone this behavior, but I understand, being in there in that game. And like I texted you, it's like if they played this game forever, I think Florida would have gotten to 10 picks before they got to 10 points at the end of that game. And yeah, okay, LSU's offense is struggling. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen or that that's not the case. I don't think Nussmeier is a fundamentally broken player. Like I think that there's enough pieces that we like here on the offense that it can be fixed. But I think at the same time, it's like, you know, you we said this. I'll say it to you like this, and I'll close it out here with the Kelly quote. Is that we said this is the key to LSU winning a championship: offense, defense, special teams. It's keeping Brian Kelly away from a microphone because
Probably.
this team could just create stories out of nothing. A game that you shouldn't feel great about, but you really did outplay Florida. You really did. You were the better team. You had a tough home win against with all the kind of back and forth with Florida. There was a pregame fight. It's the type of tough home win in the SEC that people said Brian Kelly couldn't have. He has this amazing record
Correct.
at night where he's only lost one game. It was to Alabama last year. And then at the end, the conversation we start with is Brian Kelly on a microphone.
Okay, so it's a perfectly fair question to ask within the confines of a press conference. But would I open with it after a team won a rivalry game by double digits? I personally would not do that if I'm a media member in that spot. Now, if we're in minute 10, something like that, hey, we talked about all the things that this offense could do so far. What have you seen out there with an offense that just doesn't look like maybe the unit that many expected it could be? So something like that, where if it's 10 minutes in, that's a little bit different as opposed to, hey, you just won the type of game that. And this is not what was said, but this is how Brian Kelly is processing this. Hey, you just won the type of game that a lot of people said you would inevitably choke in. And tell me about the thing that went wrong. You head coach of the number 3 team in college football. That dynamic is the LSU job. Okay, that dynamic is what separates Notre Dame and LSU. And that might be a controversial thing to say. I follow both of these programs in the way that they are covered,
Mhm.
and I don't think that it's crazy to say that LSU is scrutinized in a different way than Notre Dame is, at least from a local standpoint of going to a post-game press conference, feeling like you did this, this, and this. There is a certain level of expectation at LSU that is different than what it is at Notre Dame. And Brian Kelly took this job knowing that that was going to be the case. And maybe he did, or maybe he didn't know that there were going to be moments of scrutiny like that, where he probably just threw his hands up and said, well, I guess there's nothing I'm going to be able to do. You
Yeah.
took that job.
I mean, Notre Dame, right? I mean, they have their state-run KGB media out at BC, right? I get it, but at the same time, Brian Kelly does bring that stuff on himself. Like Coach O was not really. I'm not gonna say badgered because I want to victim blame the media here. Like I see exactly what you're saying, especially coming from like the NBA background. How there's kind of the standard guy who asks the first question to local media, and it's usually about the
Correct.
same guy, and it's usually kind of a softball question that's talk about X, Y, and Z, and it's like an opening statement. So that's a really good note to bring up that he was expecting more of like a talk about the fight that your team had kind of softball starter, and then he would have gotten into it. But at the same time, Brian Kelly does bring that on himself because, like I said, at Notre Dame, he kind of fit the part. He had the history and everything. So especially by once they had made the championship game and everything, you really didn't have stuff like that go on. But like I said, if you keep reacting this way, especially in our modern media landscape, people are going to keep poking the bear because there's all the incentive in the world to get Brian Kelly to say the crazy thing. And especially in the week where he says, I'm not going to bang the table anymore. Well, you'll do something a little bit weirder this week.
If he just gets up there and says to that question, you know, got to watch the film. Glad we're able to come out with a win. Let's, and moves on to the next thing. Even if it's a really short 5-second answer, that doesn't make the rounds, and nobody is sitting here breaking down why he got so defensive about the offense. But Will, tell me when I say something that's incorrect here. Okay, I'm just gonna rattle off things that may or may not be true. Okay,
Wait,
just
really quick, and I will say this too. Tell me if this is copium before you do that. I actually genuinely was glad that he didn't blame the players. Is that copium? Because I've seen Brian Kelly in that spot
yeah,
blame the players and be like,
good
"Well,
point.
that's on Garrett. He's got to execute there." At least he put the spotlight on himself and didn't. I'm serious. That's what he did against FSU.
You're exactly right. I was there for that, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe that he just immediately, and he did it after USC last year too. So
He
maybe
sure
that's
did.
that's the sign of Brian Kelly progress, is that he's instead just lashing out at the media and just saying that one person, it represents the entire group of people. Like all 70 media members got together and said, "Hey, fire this one at BK first."
Yeah.
That's not how this works at all. But I realize the media, everybody's in the room, gets the blame for it, even though it's one person asking the question. So just stop me when I say something that's incorrect here, or you just be what an imaginary buzzer or something like that that's sitting in front of you that you can just sound off the second I say something that's wrong. LSU had 10 first downs.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay.
Correct.
LSU faced an elite defense for the second time in 3 weeks to start the season.
Yeah.
Okay. We're still good. LSU got more than half of its rushing yards on the final meaningful play of the night, which was a 51-yarder to put the game away. So,
Correct.
okay. Garrett Nussmeier's last throw of the night was an interception that made you think he was a high school freshman and not a preseason Heisman favorite.
Correct.
Okay. LSU has a championship level defense that's impacting some of the decisions that Brian Kelly's making with fourth downs, with field position, and just how he coaches the game.
True.
Okay. The last national title winner with an offense that wasn't in the top 20 was 2015 Alabama, who also had a certain Derrick Henry.
I could say that team would probably run the ball a little bit. That Derrick Henry team probably could run the ball.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. LSU lost Whit Weeks to targeting, and then lost his brother Wes Weeks to a calf injury halfway through the game, and they were starting the third Weeks brother out there, and an LSU defense that didn't have two starting linebackers did not look like a unit that was down to its third Weeks. True?
That was crazy. And a quick note on that. I mean, these Weeks brothers are like the Greek mythological creature, the Hydra. Connor, you cut off 1 Weeks and then 2 Weeks appear in its place. You got to burn the Weeks at the stump because they're going to keep producing more Weeks until they have a full month.
It's college football O'Doyle. O'Doyle rules, man.
O'Doyle rules, and it's just they're just sacking the quarterback and they're just getting like younger over time.
O'Doyle, I got a feeling your whole family's going down, but for now, I got to study.
Yeah.
DJ Lagway also threw the ball to nobody on the last play. Just an screw it, whatever. I'm over it type throw. Even the throw in the end zone in triple coverage was that as well. That group for LSU, that defense has been everything that they could have hoped for and then some. Like it is awesome to watch this group fly around, and it's not a group that's necessarily going to hold you to like 150 yards in a given game, but when they need to make a big time play, they make it, and it's loud. And they were one step ahead of DJ Lagway. They were one step ahead of Billy Napier all game. All those things I think are true. Brian Kelly is never going to win a post game press conference ever. He's just not. He's got too much bad will to win a post game press conference where everybody's like, "Oh, good for Brian Kelly, man." It's never going to work like that. So it's only going to be negative if we're talking about it. Also true, right?
Brian Kelly needs to like adopt a random baby. Like he just needs to adopt a baby and bring the baby with him to every press conference so everyone could just be like, oh,
or a puppy,
or a puppy.
Something.
Get like the little cat that they got at Bowling Green. But yeah, I mean, I fully agree. And I mean, we also saw maybe a star in the making of Deshaun Spears, number 10 for LSU. So yeah, there's a lot to like and a lot to be perplexed by. But yeah, to your point, it's like, this is just how some of these games go.
He's clearly defensive about this offense, and he knows the time and money that's been put into it. Like that's very, very evident through all of this. I think all those things can be true. I think you can understand all those dynamics and still say, yeah, probably maybe don't lead with that question to start off a press conference. Also, there's definitely a better way to respond to that so that you won't go viral and have everybody wondering like, all right, now we're going to dig into this LSU offense even more. I think the real problem here is two things. Clemson suffered that second loss, so now people are, which that's not fair to LSU to all of a sudden be like, oh, well, maybe that win wasn't as good as we thought it was. Time will tell with all that. But the real problem is the Louisiana Tech game. If you score 38 points there instead of 23, nobody's talking about your offensive woes. We could just chalk it up to two really good defenses that you faced. You did what you could to be able to win those games. You lost that game to Florida last year. You had, in your time at LSU, had not won a game like what you won at Clemson. You did what you could to win those games. Everybody would be like, yep, I kind of get it. But it's the fact that this offense hasn't scored 24 points yet. And look, all we've known LSU to be in the 2020s is a team that can get 24 and a half. Okay? So obviously times have changed, or maybe they've just reverted back to the Les Miles stuff. I don't know. Maybe this is LSU's best defense since 2011. That would be overlooking a couple of top 5 scoring defenses from 14 and 16, but those groups weren't competing for national championships. And this group, maybe it will be the backbone of a team that can, compete for a national championship. And maybe, dare I say, maybe this group will follow a 2012 Notre Dame-ish path, which Brian Kelly knows about.
That's diabolical. Why would you wish that on anyone?
Sorry. For now, I wouldn't be as panicked about the LSU offense. I would be somewhat concerned, but I wouldn't be panicked. I would care more about trying to find your run game identity, keeping Garrett Nussmeier in the right headspace, because clearly when he blacked out and made that throw, he was not in the right headspace.
Yeah.
There's no way.
I mean, it's like why does a team struggle, right? Is it personnel? Is it scheme? Is it confidence? I mean, Joe Sloan might need to retain the services of Louisiana Realtor. I used to be able to recommend one to you, but now that my mom has moved, I cannot. But if you, I'm sure she's got some friends in the area.
Yeah.
If you keep it up like this, but yeah, I mean, again, you look at the personnel, thought the offensive line would be a pretty big question mark. Can't exactly say they've answered those questions through 3 games. But there's no reason. I mean, Caden Durham is the type of back that, again, if you just do the Mike Bobo and get him the ball in space, he should be able to make things happen. Love these receivers. I refuse to believe that Nussmeier is just a bad player now. So at the end of the day, if the defense were struggling and the offense were great, I would have lots of questions that the defense could turn it around. So I can't then, like the offense coming into the year, have nothing change except for like it looks like our quarterback sometimes has never played football and go, this is a coach's son. He's been at LSU since like COVID. Like I said, I think they'll be fine. And sometimes games just happen like this. Can we talk about DJ Lagway yet?
Yeah, let's do it. Well, let's do it. You're right. My God. You see the promise. Easy, easy. You see the promise, the touchdown pass, the ability to step up in the pocket and make some of these throws on target. You can't teach that. But this was worst case scenario for Billy Napier. Worst case scenario. A 5-interception game wherein it wasn't just, receiver drops pass, DB takes it. It was, they know what you're doing. Your quarterback is confused, and that defense that he's facing is one step ahead. And when you're the play caller, and this is your guy, your savior, your messiah, that all comes back on you. And I realize DJ Lagway's got to play better. He has to. That playing out the way that it did for Billy Napier was bad. And seeing him in the post game talk about total yards, I'm like, buddy, did you not read the Dan Mullen 2021 playbook? Don't
I was
do
about to
that when
say,
you
I know who
lose
that
a
sounds
game like
like.
that.
Yep.
Don't do that because people don't want to hear it. Your guy threw 5 picks. He threw 5 picks in a game in which he looked so much better last year. And he looked better last year with a hamstring apparatus. And so for him to look like a guy who, is he healthy? Is he not healthy? He doesn't look improved. And he still looks way too confused. Maybe this is just a Louisiana thing, but this looks really reminiscent of the bowl game against Tulane. It did. And I'm trying so hard to say Tulane correctly. I am. But this is the type of game that I thought we were going to be in. I thought it was going to be in the rearview mirror. And instead it felt 2020 Matt Corralish, who Matt Corral threw 6 interceptions against Arkansas and threw 5 against LSU in Death Valley. Bad. The type of thing that Billy Napier just could not have in this game, which didn't have to be this, oh my God, Florida has to win or else he's fired, because he's going to get more opportunities with his boss and his situation. But playing out like that was a tough pill to swallow.
So this is one of the funniest games I've ever seen ever, but live specifically. Such a weird, again, I watched some of the rebroadcast and like the commentators saying, Florida's got a chance, Florida's got time. And it just never felt that way in the stadium. And I don't know if there's a loss of confidence or what it was. I'm going to be honest. I kind of liked Billy's offensive game plan. When you think about I think he did a good job of capitalizing on LSU's aggressive defense. I think they did a good job swinging the ball out wide with the screen game and stuff like that. Where I could say I could put some of the blame on Billy is I think Ball was awesome. I think that Jaden Ball had a great game. I don't know why they didn't go with him
His
more.
usage is weird. It was the same thing down the stretch against USF too. Where, like, how is this guy not more involved? Why are you having DJ Lagway throw the ball 49 times in this game when he's clearly not seeing the field the way that he needs to see the field? And it's not like you're down 4 touchdowns, you're down 10 points.
Literally.
What?
It's like, hey man, Lagway had 49 attempts. Like when your young quarterback is clearly like feeling the EA Stadium pulse. Like the 4th pick was the worst one, but even before that, you could see that like the screws were starting to come out and he was starting to not see the field. And
That Pickett one was pretty bad too. That might have been worse. Yeah.
That guy, man, I love that guy so much. As Florida native Pickett, Kirby would be putting a peach on him if it was the other way around. But anyway, so that I don't know if you guys heard that, but that was an incredible, insane quote by Kirby this week, where Kirby said that he has a peach on his roster next to all the guys from Georgia on Tennessee. Anyway, so I say that to say, like, that's where I could say Billy failed. Is that as a game planner, I can't even really hate some of the stuff that he did. But when you see your quarterback is that rattled, when you have Ball having such a great game, and yeah, I gotta say this, man. I kind of got away from it at the time, and you've seen kind of shades of it because I didn't want to sound like a hater or like an LSU fan or whatever. But like to me, those 2 wins, LSU and Ole Miss last year, were clearly 2 teams just puking on their shoes. I think Ole Miss and LSU both made so many mistakes in those games, and Florida hit on deep shots. They did some things right, but it's not like Lagway had these awesome games. To your point, he was playing with an apparatus. It's not like his completion percentage was super high. It's not like he was hitting on all cylinders. It was just that when there were plays to be made, Florida ended up making them, and the other teams kept giving them chances. And I
He
think that
wasn't
those
unstoppable in those games, but
right.
he made big time throws and very much began the oh my god, I kind of get it with DJ Lagway type of storyline.
Yes, but it was all, I think, hope, right? Yeah, they won those games. Those wins are wins, but it wasn't, we're putting together complete performance. We still hadn't seen the rushing numbers. I don't know if Lagway will be healthy, and that was part of it too. Like, I kept saying, like, every Lagway carry is a win for LSU because when your quarterback is rattled, when he could be nursing an injury, and you're running read option stuff with him so you can get 3, 4 yards, like dink and dunk, it's just like, it's so such a bad management of a player that I don't know at this point how good he is because we haven't seen him look comfortable in the way that we've seen, some of these quarterbacks in the SEC look when their coaches, like again, Aguilar is such a great example where he just looks comfortable. I've never felt that way about Lagway. And so I'm not going to say that he's a fraud or that, we missed on him in recruiting or anything, but I just think Florida probably in the place for him, man. I mean, it's just when you have that much talent and the end result is your quarterback or your coach getting you for 49 attempts, 5 of which are picks, that's not putting good film out there and it's not helping your team.
I don't wish this on Florida fans because Lord knows in the post Tim Tebow era, it's been very hard to find that guy at quarterback. And you've had, 2020 Kyle Trask, I still say maybe going to be one of the more underappreciated SEC quarterbacks of the playoff era. But I, as someone that wants to see the best version of DJ Lagway, now find myself wanting to see him somewhere else. And that's, again, if the best version of DJ Lagway could be at Florida, then that'd be great. I don't think the best version of DJ Lagway exists with Billy Napier calling plays for him. And I think that's a fair take that any Florida fan would have to agree with at this point.
Yeah.
Like, that's undeniable.
And the defense has been awesome. I mean, like that's
Defense is
the part
good.
of it
Caleb
that
Banks looked great coming back, man. Like Florida's
yes.
defensive line can get pushed up front. Like they can do these things that they're gonna stay in these games too. But do you trust Billy Napier to win these games, especially away from home? No.
Yeah. I mean, it could be as simple as a play caller. Like you hit on that. Like I think Vernell Brown's awesome. Like I think like some of the guys they have there, some of the big plays that they made, Sturdivant, like it's crazy because again, it's like, do I think Lagway is bad? No. Do I think these receivers are bad? No. But somehow you get all this together in one soup or gumbo or whatever you call it. It just doesn't fit. And so I think that maybe we talked about, Napier was that guy who was used to playing with less talented players and pushing the pile forward, doing some of that read option stuff. And obviously DJ didn't fit that mold. So yeah, I want to see the kid succeed. He sounds like he's a very cool guy. Seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. So I hope they just don't make him into this like it's all on you, DJ Lagway. You got to go win the game. It's like that's why you should have an SEC roster behind you.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. We got 3 games still to get to here. Wisconsin, Alabama. Bama is so back. So back. I'm saying that a bit tongue in cheek. I will say this game played out exactly the way that Bama hoped it would, outside of maybe like that late Ryan Williams drop, LT Overton going to the locker room with an injury. Outside of that, there was a ton to like on the Alabama side. We talked about it in the preview. The 2 guys that got dragged on the internet for the last 2 weeks, Ryan Williams on offense, Bray Hubbard on defense, they were dominant in this one. 2 picks for Hubbard, 2 remarkable touchdowns for Williams. The one out of halftime where Bama does the trickery misdirection was a really nice Ryan Grubb call that had Wisconsin just totally perplexed. And then he stopped on a dime later on that catch where he basically did the Justin Jefferson Clemson thing on the sideline where just all of a sudden defenders just go the opposite way and you're reminded that body control. Sorry, there's just only so much you can do when that guy has the ball in his hands. And that's when Ryan Williams is at his best, in my opinion. So good to see that guy out there looking the part very much. Got to clean up the drops. That's still a thing with him. 11 drops in his career already. Isn't that kind of wild for a guy that's so decorated? 11 drops is a really, really high number.
It is, and again, I hate to just
We're
make
picking this.
excuses,
We're picking this.
but again, we talked about it down the stretch last year. It's like, he didn't have that big Julio Jones body, Calvin Johnson body. He was famously very young, even as a freshman, he was a young freshman. And I feel like they made him the center of their offense a little bit too early after that Georgia game last year.
Probably.
He's not that. And I mean, again, this is a perfect stat line for him, right? You have 5 catches. Like you're getting him open downfield. You're not running the screen game where he's getting taken out by the line of scrimmage. And so I think that some of that's the jitters of thinking, dude, if I'm going to have 10 targets in this game, I'm taking 10 bad hits, and I'm just not supposed to do that, you know?
Jeremy Bernard's their best player. He's their best player.
I
Yeah.
was going to follow up with you on that because I know you said that, and I certainly agree with you. But then the way that Ryan Williams came on, but when the game was on the line, it was Big Germ.
He's their best player. And Ryan Williams, most electrifying player, no doubt about it, can do things that Jeremy Bernard cannot. But Bernard's the guy that gets him going. He is the glue. He is the guy that it reminds me kind of John Mechie, type of guy that he was a few years ago. Maybe, Ryan Williams gets to be in the Jameson Williams type mold for this Bama team. But Bernard is he's huge. And I thought he was huge early in this game. And, the response that Kalen DeBoer hoped his team would have was exactly what happened against Wisconsin. To have Ty Simpson look composed for the second consecutive week, very important. Very important, because if he was rattled and if he was looking overwhelmed by Wisconsin, if he was going to be out here struggling in a cupcake matchup in week 2 to Louisiana Monroe, you'd be going, Austin Mack time, Keelan Russell time. Let's see what these guys have. Felt like he had his legs under him. 2 long completion streaks that were going in this one. And it feels like he has done exactly what's been asked of him post Florida State. And I don't know if it was just the early game jitters or what. We'll play the results and find out which version of Ty Simpson is really the more like week in, week out guy. But the guy that he was against Wisconsin was super, super dialed in, and one who stepped into throws and felt like nothing was really going to phase him, and the Wisconsin defense had no chance of slowing him down.
It's crazy, man, because the one offseason, I feel like I'm higher on Bama than everybody else. They come out and they have this stinker against FSU, and I'm sitting here going, "Oh my gosh, DeBoer got his buddy Ryan Grubb back. Their offense is going to be in sync. It's going to be great." And I'm watching Gus Malzahn pick them apart. Guys are loafing up and down the field. I'm like, I was wrong about everything. And then these last 2 weeks happened, and again, not going to credit ULM or whatever, but there's something to the DeBoer thing where it's like, when it doesn't work, he's red faced on the sidelines and he's yelling and all that. But I do like the confidence he shows in his guys. I like that he's going for these 4th downs. I like that he is creating like kind of unique play designs, and especially like with Grubb. And I think we're going to see more and more of that as his confidence grows in Ty Simpson. And I don't watch like all 22 in Alabama or anything, but I would guess that last year, no, I mean, I feel like we could say this pretty confidently. The offense evolved a ton over the course of the year. And then as Moro started to struggle, it's almost like they dialed it back. I feel like this offense is just getting started, and they already have their oh bleep moment. They already have their this would have never happened under Saban, ... So it's not like some of that manufactured back against the wall stuff. I am actually kind of terrified for this Alabama team.
Still need to see what it looks like away from Tuscaloosa. They're a different team. They've been a different team, and we've had moments like last year where we thought, oh, they've figured things out. And then, don't you know it, a week later, it's a dud. And obviously, all eyes are going to be on that Georgia game after the way that last year unfolded. I don't really go into this game thinking that Bama has absolutely turned the corner. Now, does Bama's offense have a much better chance of staying on the field with Georgia after we just saw Joey Aguilar do some really impressive things, albeit in a different setting? Yeah, I do. I think that's a very fair thing to say. But anything less than what Bama has done these last 2 weeks, and we'd be going, how much is Georgia going to win by? 28? Was good. How much is Kirby going to get revenge from last year? Maybe that'll still be the case, but Bama, you had to see this. You had to just get people off of the Bama's done. What's Kalen DeBoer's buyout conversation? And in 2 very favorable matchups, especially with a backup quarterback that was out there, you did the things that you couldn't do in week 1, and for that, you get to at least sit on the back burner. While everybody's talking about all these other SEC teams, we're talking about A&M, we're talking about Oklahoma, and what's Gunnar Stockton capable of. And there's teams up and down, and what's wrong with LSU? Bama gets to just kind of ease into this Georgia game, have a nice little week off, figure out what's working, what's going to work well against that Kirby Smart defense, And for the sake of my entertainment, I hope we get a game like what we got last year.
Yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that, it's not a pass fail. It's more of like an incomplete, right? You make the point about away from Bryant Denny. And like I said, I'll say that too. Like we saw those moments, saw it against FSU. We saw it against Oklahoma last year, where again, DeBoer just looks like he's so like lost and he's like sweating. And it's like, well, this guy just has no concept to get his team back. And that's been, to your point, on the road. So I think this game against Georgia is such a great measuring stick for, okay, were these 2 weeks an illusion? And I think that's really the only takeaway from this game, right? I mean, it's exactly what you would have expected. Past the first quarter, like I said, they had a couple of weird fourth downs and a couple of things happened. Ended up getting the ball right back on one of the fourth downs they didn't convert, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, I think the rest is very much still unwritten.
All right, Vandy, South Carolina. I've got a wild thought. If you just viewed teams through a 2025 lens and you didn't consider any sort of history, no historical context whatsoever, and you're just evaluating these teams through 3 weeks of who they have been, when they've stepped on the field, not knowing recruiting rankings, not knowing NFL draft stuff, none of that. Just who have these teams been between the lines for 60 minutes against the teams that they're lined up against? Does Vandy have the fewest obvious weaknesses of anybody in the SEC? Oklahoma is the only other team that I think you'd have a tough time picking holes with right now because, my God, Will, I'm aware of the Lenoris Sellers injury. We will get to in a second here. Vandy won 31-7 at South Carolina. First true road win against a ranked team since 2007, the George W. Bush administration. And in the last 5.5 quarters of football, Vandy outscored consecutive Power 5 teams in true road atmospheres, hostile true road atmospheres, 65-7. Well, first time starting 3-0 with 3 wins of 20 points since 1930. The Herbert Hoover administration, the vacuum guy. That's right.
I wasn't prepared as the vacuum guy. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's a Home Alone 2 Lost in New York line wherein Kevin rightfully asks about the suite that he's staying in the Grand Plaza Hotel. And Herbert Hoover once stayed here, and he's the vacuum guy, which fair question. Fair question. And
Yes.
yeah, sure. Why not? Not the president.
But yeah, I mean, you make the point about Vandy. I would take Oklahoma because of Oklahoma's like blue chip talent situation. But they made this point on like SEC final, and I agree with it. It's like
But
you
that's the thing.
watch.
Take away the blue chip talent.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Who-
Like you look up and down this game, and it's like, wow, Vandy just kind of had better dudes in South Carolina, which is so weird because that's what we've liked about Beamer over the years, is that he's been able to find these guys. He'll bring in some of the 5 stars like a Nick Harper, some of the guys on defense, but he'll also identify some of these kind of like diamonds in the rough. And again, like South Carolina lost a ton after last year. It's you got to credit South Carolina for what they've done while also respecting that when you lose a lot of the guys like that in your program like South Carolina, it's hard to replace those guys in one season. So again, doesn't exactly change perception. Hiring Mike Shula, I don't think helped a ton. We joked about that at the time.
Yeesh.
Not a great day for that. Mike Shula haters rejoice once again, right? But point being, that's the thing about Vandy is it's not a fluke. It doesn't feel like this scrappy little team. It feels like and like honestly, man, like the Barton Simmons part of this is kind of underrated. The fact that he has that connection with Lee and the fact that that's a guy who has been in the recruiting world for so long and he kind of has some of those connections and knows how to evaluate players. And it sounded crazy when they brought in, all these guys from the state of New Mexico and they were, brought in this recruiting outsider and all that. But you look, at a team that we talked about, 2 teams that are really jockeying for kind of that next tier in the SEC behind, your Georgias or Alabamas. And it's like, no, like Vandy's already beaten Alabama. Vandy already believes that they belong here. And suddenly you look up, and if you take the logos off, keep the jerseys because they look sick, but you go, this team could kind of hang with anybody on any given night, and they feel like they've gotten better from last year.
Pretty sure Vandy's, and I haven't checked this, I'm pretty sure Vandy's the only team in the SEC with 2 true road wins through week 3. And they were blowouts.
They got to be. Nobody scheduled them.
The front part of their schedule was supposed to challenge them. It was supposed to be tricky. If you had told anyone in the offseason when you're doing, crystal balls and stuff like that, if you had told a Virginia Tech fan, hey, Vandy's going to come into your house and clear out the stadium mid fourth quarter. Oh, hey, Vandy's going to come into your house, South Carolina fans, and they're going to clear out your preseason top 15 team. And they're going to be joking at your expense afterwards about how, so this is the full Williams-Brice experience everyone was talking about. And it's a picture of a bunch of empty seats. If you had been told that, South Carolina fans, you would have been like, what? In football? No.
Yep.
Knowing last year, knowing that it played out the way it did, this was a beatdown. And anyone who doesn't rank Vandy in their top 25, I know we talked a lot about the AP top 25 last week and all the issues with it. Anyone that leaves Vandy out of your top 25, you cannot be my friend.
It's
You
insanity.
don't watch football.
At this point,
That'd
this
be
is again
insanity.
a team that was good last year, a team that was strong last year, that proved you they were fundamentally like a top 25-ish team last year, and they brought back a lot of the stuff you like, kind of the opposite of South Carolina, where they keep everyone, they improve over a year. Yeah, I mean, this is like a serious. I hate to put a ceiling on them because they've proven us wrong at every stage.
That's okay. So I want to get to that. But for those that are shouting, whether you're listening in the car, headphones, whatever, wherever you're listening to this and you're shouting, talk about the Lenore Sellers injury. I don't want to hear they only won that game because Lenore Sellers got hurt. I think two things are true. I think Vandy wins if Sellers stays healthy, based on the fact that Vandy was up 14-7 in that game. Sellers was taking bad sacks. He had that bad interception, just a throw that you cannot make, where he doesn't see, I think it was a defensive lineman who drifts into coverage. And he wasn't responsible for how unstoppable Vandy's offense felt at times. And I also think, look, if you're a South Carolina fan, you're like, oh, Vandy just knocked out our quarterback. That's like a cheat code. Langston Patterson, who's the captain of that Vandy defense, he gets a free rush on Sellers. And while he was correctly flagged for targeting, I don't think Vandy's captain had any malicious intent. This isn't necessarily a Dallas Turner, Jaden Daniels situation. You can't argue that if you're a South Carolina fan.
Wow, there we go. There we go. Now you're forgiven for bringing up A&M earlier.
I don't think that he is trying to do something malicious. He's trying to sack one of the toughest guys to sack in the sport. Maybe the single toughest guy to sack in the sport. That is Lenore Sellers. That sequence sent Shane Beamer to levels that I've never seen him at of irate. So in case
Which is
you missed
impressive
this,
because he's an animated dude.
very animated dude on the sideline. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's, I can't believe that just happened in front of my eyes. And you worry about if he's just going to collapse on the sideline with how berserk he's going. But in case you missed this sequence, that play happens wherein Langston Patterson gets the free rush on Lenore Sellers, and Sellers is down in the field, having taken this shot to the head. The trainers tend to Sellers, get his helmet off. He's walked to the sidelines. It's a stop. It's a full-on stoppage of play. It's not like he tried to like gut it out and then he leaves next play or anything. They had a full stoppage for this. Then officials line up the ball. South Carolina brings in Luke Doty, and it looks like he's got a huge completion to Nick Harbor, but they blow it dead. Why do they blow it dead? Because now they're going to look at targeting. Horrible, and I mean horrible officiating. The type of thing that cannot happen. The type of thing that if you're overseeing the officials, get this guy off get those guys off whatever game they're supposed to be on next week. That sucked. While they are sitting there having the ability to figure things out while Lenore Sellers is down on the ground, one of the best players in college football is laying down on the ground because of a massive hit. What are you doing? What are you doing while that guy is writhing in pain? And then all of a sudden, South Carolina looks like it has a huge chunk play, which it desperately needs in a 14-7 game. And Nick Harbor, world-class speed, not sure if you heard, that guy had space. And I'm not sure if anybody on that Vandy defense was going to stop him on that play, okay? We don't know that. But now you're going to look at targeting? South Carolina did not lose because of that. But Shane Beamer was 100% justified to lose his mind over how that played out because it was maddening. Terrible officiating.
Yeah, I mean, both things can be true, right? It's like I think that, again, Shane Beamer is correct. I think, I mean, you're right. Vandy's captain. It's not like it's a malicious hit. We've seen so many people try to like half wrap up in Lenore Sellers and it doesn't work. And I think that's why, a lot of the NFL is going to more mobile quarterbacks because it's so hard to legally take down a Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, right? In this day and age, because you got to really lay some lumber on them. And so,
you got to go high. You kind of have to go high on him.
Yeah. And given last year with Sellers, like, you don't want him going low. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of was his issue last year is when guys would kind of go low to take out his knees or ankles. And so I think at the same time, it's just an unfortunate situation. That's the game of football. But you're right. I think that, and this is not, shouldn't give you solace. I've been there. You talked about the Dallas Turner thing. But it's like, hey, you feel that way if it's a late one possession game. You feel that way if Chip Lindsey and that defense aren't struggling the way that they are, and I think that's where South Carolina really lost more is like we said on defense. And so it's almost to me when I've been there in this situation as a fan. I'm not telling South Carolina fans how do you think, but it's worse when you lose that guy and the game is down to the wire, and you think, well, certainly if we had him, certainly if he had his best stuff. To your point, he had the pick. It wasn't like he was like playing his best game as it was, and I think that the way that they responded was kind of just fine. But you can't
Mm.
let something like that. That's the thing about Beamer. He, again, man of my own heart, right? A man of my own heart, an emotional dude, wears that on his sleeve. But sometimes you got to bring it down and say, hey, this is the reality we live in. And I think that's some of the stuff we saw it last year in the bowl game. That's some of the stuff that I think he would like to have back when he looks back and says, hey, we got to still believe we're in this game, that the officials have, bleeped us. Now it's a foxhole mentality. It's us against the world versus we don't have a shot here.
Here's the question that I found myself asking as the second half of this game plays out, and it's not competitive whatsoever. It's just not. How far behind must Air Noland, the Ohio State transfer, be if we had to go through the Luke Doty experience? Because, oh gosh, maybe earmuff this, South Carolina fans. It felt like I was watching Oklahoma Jackson Arnold. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And look, I'm not going to take away what Luke Doty has meant to that program. He's essentially done the Carry Joyner thing of staying. Oh, I'll play receiver. I'll do what you guys need me to do. I know I'm not the quarterback of the future, but I'll do what you guys need to do. I love this program. Not discounting that whatsoever. Okay, but that was bad. It was one read, and I'm going to try and take off and make some people miss. And he's got a little bit of that ability, but that was never going to be the guy that was going to lead him back, especially when they fell behind 2 scores. And it was very, very obvious. Like Stephen Gregory and this Vandy defense is so unbelievably disciplined with these mobile quarterbacks. We've seen that play out so far in the first part of the year, and more people need to be talking about this because that unit is imposing its will. Shout out to my guy, Larry Black, my former freshman year floor mate at Indiana, who's coaching up that defensive line. And they are getting after it at the line of scrimmage. And we brought it up against Virginia Tech, but like Luke Doty did not have a shot against the Vandy defense and looked totally, totally overwhelmed. Go figure that South Carolina, in a weird way, got 2 consecutive reminders from Vandy that it might not be as good as that number 11 ranking suggests because the Virginia Tech thing, the way that played out. And it's like, well, Vandy just walloped Virginia Tech in their own building, and South Carolina, like 6 days earlier, you were kind of fighting late in that game to be able to pull it out. So wild sequence of events, the way that it played out. And for Vandy to be sitting in this spot, 3-0, very much in the top 25.
So when you said the Virginia Tech thing, I thought you meant that they got smoked by Old Dominion. That's another part of it too, where it's like, oh, you guys had to come back against this team. Guess who didn't? Old Dominion. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I remember talking to some of the beat writers, the South Carolina guys at media days, and they were like, "Yes, exactly what you said." Like, they're like, Aaron Nolan is like not even close. We're thinking it's gonna be
Yeah.
Luke Doty, and like, like from our national perspective, it's like, last time I saw this guy, he's like catching passes. Like, that's crazy. He's in year 6 at South Carolina. Like, how is this like how where we're at? Where you bring in this big recruit? But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like when a coach talked about this with Lagway, that is a coach doing a player a favor. Because obviously, if the guy's not ready, you'd rather go with a Luke Doty who knows the building, knows the system, knows the guys a little bit better than have Aaron Nolan get out there and put bad tape to where, okay, now other teams are looking at you negatively. Now it's hurting your confidence. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. They were dead in the water with Doty, but I still feel like that was ultimately the right decision.
South Carolina looks more like a 7-5 team, especially with the schedule that awaits. And as for Vandy, I'm not willing to put a ceiling on them just yet. I'm not. Diego Pavia said Natty's the goal. Nothing I have seen in 2025 through week 3 suggests that he cannot do that. So I will not say Vandy, 8-4. No.
No,
Not
we have
going to be
had
a hater.
some beautiful and chaotic segments with like the SEC crew, our guys Cole and everything. The Theo Von mom date segment.
Great call, Will. I almost forgot about this with Cole. Cole brought up on the sideline with Theo Vaughn that apparently Diego Pavia said that if Vandy beats South Carolina, which by the way, the game that he had circled on his calendar, that Theo Vaughn could then go on a date with Diego Pavia's mom. And then Theo Vaughn said to Cole, like, I don't know if I'll take him up on it. I what more what at this point will surprise you with Diego Pavia? Anything?
Look, we've seen Pablo Torre have a great week reporting, in the NBA. Great job by Cole Kublik bringing that up. That was great on the ground reporting because I thought, Theo Vaughn would have a little bit of that young gravy in him. He'd come out talking about somebody's mom. He was a little sheepish.
He
He didn't feel
was.
like he was ready to cash on his side of the bet after Diego did.
Yeah. Can't say I saw that one going in that direction. Cannot. It's just Diego Pavia's world. We're all living in it. If he's going to make that sort of a deal, weird deal. Weird
Weird
deal.
deal.
Not sure the upside of that one.
But when you're that kind of a crazy person, you got to just make things up. That's what I love. He gaslights himself. That's what I love about him. Anyway,
Unbelievable. All right, let's close up with Arkansas and Ole Miss. Trinidad Chambliss.
gold
Welcome to
all
the
in
big
my
time.
ray. Gold all in my I was asking Connor off air if he knew who Trinidad James was. The answer was no. If we stick with some Trinidad here, man, we're gonna get some hotty toddy. I'm sweating. Woo!
No idea what you just mentioned. No idea whatsoever. I'm just going to assume that more people will understand that, and I won't, and that's fine. I'll admit. Holes in my game. Is
Electric
that
player though.
electric? He was the pride of Ferris State. My goodness, Austin Simmons was a surprise non-starter with the ankle injury. Kiffin said he'd be available, so it was Chambliss time. Um, when we record on Wednesday, didn't even open myself up to that possibility, and maybe I should have. I don't know, but dude was slinging it. Odd that Simmons came in for that touchdown throw after it looked like Chambliss had he hit his arm or he hit his hand on the helmet or something like that. And so he oddly is kind of the emergency quarterback who comes in and then he gets hurt again and the ankle is just not right after the touchdown throw. But Ole Miss found a way with a backup quarterback. And if you didn't know any better, you'd think that Chambliss was the starter and Simmons was some freshman getting random reps. It's amazing that Lane Kiffin can do this. And I think about how many programs in college football can't watch a guy ever have 400 yards of total offense. And they have no idea what that looks like when their stud, the guy they've been waiting for, the guy that they've known about since he was a sophomore in high school and they've recruited him to be able to do this. And one day, if that guy could just have a 400-yard day in a conference game, about what that would look like and how much. But imagine if Iowa fans got to see a quarterback do that. And Lane just does this with a guy from Ferris State. Why not? What?
That's
Unbelievable.
yeah. And the thing about Lane, man, is like, okay, what have we talked about over and over again? It's like, oh, your starter goes down. What does that do? It limits your QB run game because you can't have your backup getting hurt out there. This dude led them in rushing yards too. And the thing that's so beautiful about Lane Kiffin, he's just such an A1 troll, man. Like, again, nobody saw this coming. And, he puts together this masterful game plan in a game that I think Arkansas played really well, especially up to Arkansas standards. Like they made their mistakes here and there, but they were certainly in this game. And that being said, like I remember, guys, if you don't have Lane Kiffin notifications on every app, like what are you doing? Last night he was like midnight last night, just sharing random like local newspaper or ESPN box scores of him beating Arkansas on Twitter. He was just retweeting like he hit the share link that your dad does when he goes to like show you stuff for your family or whatever, and he's just retweeting like big win for Ole Miss, and it's like you know what you're doing. You're the funniest man on earth. It's your world right now, Lane.
He was very emotional to be able to pull out that win. And the TJ Daughtery forced fumble there. Arkansas fans, you know that pain all too well. You do. Down 6 in that spot. Just that's just been who you've been for a very long time. And that's so frustrating because they had opportunities. Like Taylor Green played really well. He
Another
was their better in
400
that
yard
game.
player. Yeah.
Golly, ran for 115, didn't turn the football over, didn't do the things that we said he's been doing against quality competition. And Arkansas was 9 for 12 on third down. Amazing that they only had 1 second half score after the way that things started and looked like they're just going to get every blade of grass that they want. Missed a field goal from 36, which obviously that hurt them, but it's a wasted opportunity for Arkansas and for Sam Pittman as a whole, because instead of being the first road ranked win you've had in 9 years, when you've got a backup quarterback out there making his first start in an Ole Miss uniform, Arkansas wastes a really good performance from Taylor Green and watches Lane Kiffin get the last laugh, which he's been prone to do. and a game that felt very much like Lane's pre-Pete Golding days at Ole Miss, where he's got to win these crazy shootouts. That was kind of playing out. And those are the times to get Ole Miss. They are, when their defense just looks like, oh my God, they can't do anything right. And instead, everybody's going to be patting Ole Miss on the back and wondering, a question that you asked me before we even hopped on here. Is there a controversy? A little quarterback controversy in Oxford? What do you think?
I mean, I'll ask it to you like this, right? Because obviously you were able to watch more of this game. I was at LSU. Do you think that Ole Miss wins this game with Austin Simmons?
God, I knew you were going to say that. Yes, because the way that I projected this, yeah. But if you're saying, if I knew that, okay, so here's the better way to answer this. If I thought, and apologies, by the way, Claire has just woken up from nap time. If you hear her in the background, please don't give us a 1-star review. We do line this up with her nap schedule. People know that by now. If you had told me going into this one, that version of Taylor Green is going to play out, do I think Austin Simmons can hang with it? I would say I wouldn't feel great about that. I'd say maybe it's going to come down to like one play, and I would not feel particularly inspired because Taylor Green played better than I thought he was going to against this Ole Miss defense, and they needed their boy Trinidad to step up and look the way that he did. Talk about Joey Aguilar playing like he's a guy on borrowed time. I don't know how much time Trinidad Chambliss has from an eligibility standpoint. And so maybe that factors into this whole like QB controversy thing. Dorian was talking about it afterwards of like, this guy showed more juice than what Austin Simmons did. And Austin Simmons struggled with those first quarter turnovers, to have 2 interceptions in the first quarter in each of the first 2 games. For Ole Miss fans, it was refreshing to see them kind of get off to this great start and feel like, oh, this quarterback isn't going to put it in harm's way, and we're not going to have to climb back out of this, this offensive rut. I still would say Austin Simmons is the guy that's in year 3 in the system, and you still need to see what you have. If it doesn't work, now you've got a guy who has some juice, like has some real juice. Put up like over 51 touchdowns at D2 national champs. I mean, can make some plays, and pretty wild that Ole Miss was able to get a guy like that to sign up to be a backup. But yeah, I think you need to see a little bit more of a bigger sample size to say that you need to make a change if you're Lane Kiffin.
But see, that's the cachet that Lane Kiffin has, created at this point in time. That guys, I mean, we saw the guy from Oklahoma State, Simmons, right? Where it's just like, okay, like I'm going to come out here just to be on this team, right? And so, same deal. Like I will say this, I think it was a massive blessing in disguise. I
You're
think
saying
we could,
Sanders, Spencer Sanders.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
That was again, guy barely played. We thought he'd come in to start, and it's just like I want to be around Lane Kiffin. And so, like point being, I think this was a massive blessing in disguise. No matter how you slice it, we're talking about a guy in Austin Simmons, who has as many touchdowns as he has picks this year, and it's been early, and you couldn't really have 2 more different quarterbacks. We talked about Simmons being this young guy who's like this genius, like a Doogie Howser type quarterback, and he's overthinking stuff. Whereas like Trinidad Chambliss, complete opposite, back against the wall. He's out there chucking it. He's out there mixing it up with his legs. And I think to your point, like in a day where we see such great things from Taylor Green, we see again 2 400-yard quarterbacks. I just don't think that we've seen enough out of Austin Simmons to think that he could duel a grown man in Taylor Green the way that he did. So when I projected this game, I imagined Austin Simmons would come in, have a couple of turnovers, right? And what we got in reality was a game where the quarterback play was much better than I think I could have expected. And so I think it's a good problem to have, because exactly let me put it like this. If this game doesn't happen, if Simmons is healthy, but if he goes out there and struggles, we've already seen the Kentucky game where he didn't get pulled, right? Well, now what Trinidad can do. Now that should make, iron sharpens iron. That should make Simmons better because Lane has a guy he can go to, whereas previously Lane has shown that he would stick with a guy like that. So point being, I think it's a dream situation if you're Ole Miss, and I think that they're going to move this football. That's the thing. No matter who does it.
No doubt. If Arkansas had won this, I think Taylor Green would have been part of this conversation. But the early Heisman leader at this point, John Mateer, Carson Beck, maybe Dante Moore deserves to be part of that conversation. Even Marcel Reed maybe deserves to be part of that conversation right now. Gunnar Stockton, I hear you, Georgia fans, although the first 2 games, maybe not so much. But yeah, I think that it's so wide open. can I just say I'm so fired up for Auburn, Oklahoma next week. I know the week 4 slate is weak, but gosh, I'm glad that these two teams are undefeated, and that game is going to do the heavy lifting for the SEC with how light week 4 looks. I
Mhm.
cannot wait for that game. Huge game, obviously for Jackson Arnold and his return to Norman, but John Mateer being maybe the Heisman favorite going into week 4, just exactly the way that Oklahoma could have drawn it up. Contrary to what Herbstreit predicted on game day, Oklahoma was not in a dogfight in the fourth quarter with Temple. Didn't
No,
happen.
not even a
Yeah,
little bit, and boy, howdy does Oklahoma look awesome.
seriously. All right, that's a pod. That'll do it. That was a good one. Week 3 was a good one. Had to get in depth with a lot of these different matchups because of just how fun that slate was. Please leave us a 5-star review. As I said at the top, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Saturday Down South on YouTube, where you can watch every episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. We're also on Twitter at the SES Pod, at Sat Down South, at CJ Rivera, at Chris Hart. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.